Okay, so now we have our child theme set up. We have our child theme active. There's basically two places that I start with when I do a brand new site to just kind of get a baseline in place. If you've messed around with building websites in WordPress before, you're familiar with this section right here under Appearance, this Customize section. In general, any site that you're building, I would probably recommend you go there first because that tends to be the theme's kind of core settings. And in this case, we're using the Beaver Builder theme and the Beaver Builder plugin. The plugin portion is the page builder. The Beaver Builder theme is just a place where it's just a theme. It's just the general layout, design, colors, in general, kind of a little bit of a back step here. Themes are intended to handle design and layout, look and feel, however you want to define that, the stuff that you would look at. And then plugins are essentially designed to add functionality. So WooCommerce or Gravity Forms or whatever, like the plugin is essentially made for functionality. Themes are made for design and layout. In this particular case, the Beaver Builder plugin is providing us with page builder functionality, which we'll look at in a second. But we're also using the theme, so we're going to play around with the theme for a bit. So, in this particular case, in the Beaver Builder theme, we do have a lot of things on the left-hand side here that you would normally not see with like the 2016 or 2017, like the WordPress native themes. So what I generally do is I cruise down through all of these and make sure that I have the things set up correctly before I get started. So I don't ever mess with presets, but you can certainly try those out. I'm sure they give different general looks and feels to the overall look of the site. But I mostly start with general in here. And so in my layout, our page builder, so the Beaver Builder plugin, is going to actually handle the content width for us because that's how we're actually creating our pages. If we weren't using the Beaver Builder plugin and we were just using the Beaver Builder theme, then this 1020, I believe it's just 1020, yeah, would work. It would actually do something. But in this case, we're going to be doing the settings for the rows and the columns in the plugin. So we're going to kind of ignore this. In general, I do set things at 1280. That's kind of my go-to now for content. But again, we're going to mess with it over in the other area. And then the breakpoints are set here as well, but they're also set in the page builder. So this is one of those confusing areas where they are here in the theme settings, but they're not making the assumption that you're going to use their plugin, so there is a little bit of overlap here. So the only other thing I pick in here are Font Awesome icons because they're super handy, and Beaver Builder provides them in the theme for us. So I typically just grab 5, and then that eliminates some issues that I have found in the past with like the drop-down arrows on navigations not showing up correctly. So I typically grab Font Awesome 5. And then every time you do stuff in here, you want to hit Publish, which is essentially the Save button. I think most of you are probably familiar with that. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. Background, I never really do much with a background color, but you can certainly set that here. And again, it's going to be for every page. So in general, you're probably better off doing something in the page builder itself than doing, site-wide, unless you want the background color to always be like a light blue or something, or whatever your favorite color is. Accent color tends to be the default for like these links. So what I have here on the left-hand side, by the way, is something I got from a previous client. I won't bother mentioning them, but this is a style sheet from the designer. So in this particular case, what you could do is you could set your default accent color to be that orange, which is F26522. And then you could make the hover color, I don't know, let's just make it one of the darker colors here. So 4D, 4D, 4F. So that'll be our hover color. and then go ahead and publish that. Again, for the most part, you're going to be setting these things on your own. Like you're going to set your link color probably in CSS, or in the navigation we're going to set in this next section. So these don't always show up. Sometimes it'll show up for, like it's telling you here, it'll sometimes show up for links and buttons, but in general, nothing's changed here for our navigation or our footer, so we know it doesn't mess with those two things. But anyway, you can set those. I wouldn't spend a lot of time on them. Headings is one area that I really, really like about the Beaver Builder thing. So the Beaver Builder theme. So a lot of times what you get from a client is, again, the style sheet. So I now know that my header, my H1, needs to be the Tico font at 75 pixels and semi-bold. And then I also have an H2, an H3, an H4, and my body copy. So what's beautiful about this is instead of styling all headings the same, I can do a custom H1 style, and then that gives me all the extra, I can make everything else different. So I can just style H1. So I'm going to do that right now. So I happen to know that the color is that weird, it's not weird, but the 4040F, and the font family is Ticos, and that happens to be a Google font. So what you're seeing here is Beaver Builder provides us with all of the Google fonts that are available. So they've set this up for us, so you don't have to go and NQ your font. So I know it's Tico, and then we know that it's semi-bold, and then it's the font format is regular. It's not capitalized or anything goofy like that. Like H3 is capitalized, so we could set that there as well, which is kind of handy, but this one's going to be regular. And then the font size is 75. Line height we can probably leave alone until we actually see it, and maybe we want to adjust it at that point. And then letter spacing, the same kind of thing. So now what you can still do is for the rest of the fonts, which these are, well, a couple of Roboto, and this one, the H2 and 3 are Tico. So maybe we'll just set those to be Tico here as well, and then we'll just mess with the H3 and the H4 separately. So this is just nice. It kind of gives you the ability to set these things up ahead of time. And then the font weight, I'm just going to put, I guess we'll just leave it as, well, make it semi-bold. But then you can keep going down here. So the H2 tag we know is 48, so I can set that one. The H3 is 30, so I can set that. And the H4 is 18, already set, and then I'll just leave those alone. So what this does is allows you to create these, get these fonts set way ahead of time before you even start building your pages. So if on every page you have the contact us or wherever your title is, and it's always going to be an H1, you've now set that so you don't have to mess with it anymore. You don't have to mess with it on every page, which is super handy. Text, same deal. We know that text is whatever color this is, which we can figure out. It's probably this E5 or the 6.8, not quite sure. But then it is Roboto, so we'll just go ahead and get this squared away. If I could spell. So there's Roboto, and the font weight is regular, and the font size is 18. So now we've actually, I guess I'll just, since I'm doing it, I'll go ahead and do this. So 6.8, 6.8, 6A. Cool. 6.8, 6.8, 6.8, that's right, cool. So now we have our H1 tag set. You can see my font has already changed. You can see the font is bigger now, and if we were to inspect that, we would see that it is in fact Roboto and 18. So now we've got those all squared away. You can play with buttons if you want. You can mess with your social links, which is part of it, but we're going to get out of here for now. Go back to our header. The header's kind of slick, so there is a bar up here that they're not showing. So you can specify a header up there, and then what we should see is nothing maybe. But then if I put some text in here, yeah, so that's what that top bar is doing for us. You can do 2 columns, and I think it dumps a menu in the second one, but you can choose whatever you want. Social icons, for example, which I don't think we have any. Anyway, so you can add that top bar up there. In general, unless the design calls for it, I don't waste my time with it. But then you could also let that save. I want to cruise to the header. So here's the header layout. You can have the nav right. You have a bunch of different options. Nav centered if you want, and it'll put the MAMP thing in the middle. So if you have a bigger menu, sometimes it's helpful to put the logo, which now just says MAMP, but you put the logo up top, and you can have all your navigation across the bottom. You can adjust your padding between in that header area. You can do all kinds of neat stuff with fixed headers so that it will shrink as the page scrolls. I'm just going to leave that the way it is for now. So kind of getting back to like, I just kind of come through all of these things. I set my link colors and I set all those things. You'll see down here the nav style is, that's blue, and this is the active one. So if I'll just show you how this can change. If I make that orange, now so now the active and the hover, as you can see, is now orange. So you can mess with all of those things in your navigation. So kind of the lesson here is I start everything in here. I go into Appearance, Customize, and I just go through all of these things one by one. Here's your blog layout and WooCommerce and all of those things. I go in and I set all these things up ahead of time before I even go and start to build pages. And that allows you to get things really kind of basically set up the way you want them before you start. And then what we're going to do in the next video is go through the actual page, like the on-page settings themselves. So we're going to do that next.